Welcome, my fancast. My name's Luke Payson, and as always, welcome back to those are subscribers to the show. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe so you can see more interviews with the first-time guest on the show, the Queen, Alaina Dutill. Alaina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It's really always an honor to have first-time guests of the show. Hopefully, you'll be back on the show as your career continues. But you've got a big fight coming up at Brawl in the Burgh 19 for 247 Fighting Championships. You're going to be making the trip in. You're going to be driving west from Reading, Pennsylvania to come out to Pittsburgh to take on Faith Nichols at Brawl in the Burgh 19 at the Monroeville Convention Center. But first, let's talk about the fight you just had. You're a 4-2 amateur fighter. And on November 3rd, just a couple weeks ago, you had a really nice unanimous decision win. Let's talk about that fight. What do you remember from it, and how did you feel in there that
night? So what I remember from it, going in, obviously, we're warming up, we're nervous. Obviously I had my nerves like every fight we always have. We're nervous. I was the main event of that show. It was for a Cage Wars championship belt for the title there. And there was like 18 fighters on the card. It was a long night. I probably didn't fight till 11 p.m. So it was pretty exhausting. It was hours before I fought. And I was like, nervous, waiting for all them fights to go by for me to fight. And then I finally got my chance. And once I stepped in that ring, the nerves just went away. I stuck to our exact game plan that we worked through our fight camp and everything. And it went exactly the way I thought it was going to go.
Well, that is incredible. I did not realize it was for a title fight, so that's my bad, because I would have introduced you as the champion, the reigning champion. It'll be exciting. And that's awesome. Was that the first time you've ever fought for a belt? And did that make a mental difference for you at all when you were in there that night?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely did. Especially bringing that belt, it brought my confidence up. It makes me feel better about my abilities and my capabilities and wanting to go pro one day. I did also win WKAs this year too, so I hit 2 goals in 1 year, so I'm pretty happy about that.
WKAs, for people that may not know, is a kickboxing tournament where you sometimes have to fight multiple fights in a day, often a couple days in a row. So how many fights did you end up fighting? What was that tournament like for you?
I did 4 fights. It was crazy because if you're sore or hurt, your ass is getting back in there. So you don't get a break. So it's not like you fight 3 rounds and you're done like a regular MMA fight would be. You fight your 3 rounds and then you get back in there in 15 minutes because you're going for semifinals. So there's no break. I think I probably pulled my groin. I sprained my wrist. Oh my gosh. I got tennis elbow. I don't even know, and I fought through it. So it's crazy.
And a 4-0 run is awesome. And for you to have 2 belts, 2 goals in the same year, and that's probably really a good way to do it when you're doing MMA, is to try to do some BJJ tournaments, some kickboxing fights, tournaments, and then obviously MMA. So you've been doing quite a bit. Let's back up, since I asked this question everybody the first time on the show. What got you into MMA? What sports background did you have? How long have you been training? And what's the journey been like? Because clearly you're cramming a lot in, and you already mentioned that you want to go pro in the future.
Yeah, so I tell everybody this story. Everybody asks me what got me into this. I started when I was 7 in karate. My dad got me into karate as a kid. I used to fight the little boys in the neighborhood. I used to, get little fist fights with them, thinking I was so tough. And my dad's like, "Yo, we got to calm you down. So we're going to put you in a sport. So we're going to get you in karate and teach you self-defense." So he put me in karate. 15 years later, I got my 2nd-degree black belt. I got bored of karate. I wanted to kind of do something harder. So then I moved on to jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, and then eventually I got into the whole aspect of MMA.
Wow. Well, that's great. Yeah. You're a very well-rounded. Is any part of your fight reminiscent to Stephen the Wonder Boy Thompson as far as the karate moves within MMA, or are you kind of now more a traditional kickboxer, Muay Thai stand-up?
I'm a Holly Holm girl.
Oh, Holly Holm. So that's more just pure kickboxing. I mean, she obviously had well-rounded everything, but she came from a professional boxing, then kickboxing background and really used that well.
I just love her style and the way she fights. I mean, I do have my jiu-jitsu behind me, but if I had to compare my stand-up to anybody, it would probably be Holly Holm. And just because
Well,
I've always looked up to her ever since like the beginning when I first started following her in her early 30s.
yeah. Well, yeah, and sometimes people, she had some rough stretches in the UFC after her championship win against Ronda Rousey, but people forget that she was in her late 30s and had already had 50 or 60 boxing fights and kickboxing. I mean, she was picking up MMA at the highest level late in her career. So that makes perfect sense that you would say you're reminiscent of Holly Holm. So let's get to your upcoming fight. You're taking on Faith Nichols. You're coming out, like I had said, for Brawl in the Burgh 19. Why say yes to this fight? What are your thoughts going up against Faith?
I said I don't turn down a fight. Honestly, if I send it to my coach first and I let him verify it, because I'm all about it, but I let him have the last say because he knows me better than anybody else does. So I took that. I just want to build my record. Like I said, I do want to become a professional MMA fighter. So I just want to start building my wins up. Like I said, I'm 4-2. My first fight ever was a doctor stoppage, unfortunately. So, coming back from like my first fight and having that doctor stoppage, it kind of discouraged me. But now, since I have, I guess 10 fights behind me with kickboxing and all that too, I just keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great. And also, it doesn't show up on your Tapology because your Tapology is just MMA. And for some people that don't know, there are still some states out there that aren't as sanctioned as well. So sometimes people have more MMA fights that aren't sanctioned, only take sanctioned MMA fights. That doesn't make any sense. But anyhow, so yeah. You actually have close to 10 fights and a 4-0 kickboxing record is pretty fantastic at the WKA tournament. So I can't wait to see what do you know of Faith. I've gotten to watch Faith. To my knowledge, she hasn't fought for 247 fighting championships before, but I think I've seen her live maybe once or twice in the local Morgantown area, if I'm remembering right. What do you know about her style? And do you, with no disrespect for her, do you not really worry about that and just focus on like being the best you when you're in there? Some people have different mindsets when it comes into matching up against their opponents.
I mean, most people, we always do our study up on our on our opponents. I looked at her last 2 fights that she had. I see her as more, I think she seems like a striker to me. I didn't see her go for any takedowns in any of her fights. They tried to take her down, but I didn't see her go for any takedowns. There's 2 fights that I can see, and the other 2 fights I can't find. So, I do my stalking. We all do, they get their feel in what they do, and then we take what they do in their fight, we mimic it in our fight camp, and then we come up with our game plan.
Sure. Well, December 16th is going to be an incredible card. I'm super excited. I think the whole card is up to 3 female fights, which is incredible. I mean, that's obviously a big deal. And so it's super exciting to see that. There are times the legendary matchmaker Jim Mooney is kind of disappointed when he can't have when there's cards without female fights on it, because there's female fighters out there that need fights, but it gets a little tricky to match. So hats off to both you and Faith and all the other female fighters on there, because it can be very feast and famine. You can go a long time without getting matched, and then suddenly there's a bunch of matches. Very exciting. It's going to be absolutely incredible start to finish. Do you want to do a prediction or say any reason why people should tune in and watch your fight, either on the pay-per-view specifically or live in person? Is there something that you can say of why people should be excited to watch you and Faith throw down December 19th?
Well, I don't want to make a prediction because I don't want to contradict myself, but I definitely know I can be a very entertaining fighter. My last fight, I was a little bit too technical. My last fight, I could have done more damage and been more entertaining, but I was being technical and going with the game plan. But I can be very entertaining. We're going to throw hands. I'll make sure we throw hands and get pretty scrappy.
Well, that's enough reason for me to want to come out, watch you and all the other fighters. The Brawl in the Burgh 19 card is going to be stacked. It's already stacked with the 6 or 7 fights that have been announced, and it's only going to get more between now, December 19th. Thanks so much for coming on. It's always a complete honor having first-time guests of the show on. So you've been listening to Luke Bassett with MMA Fancast and the champion, Alaina the Queen Dutill. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it.